Hello everyone, FiFi and Sam for a midweek musings, which we haven't done for a
No,
few
it's been a
weeks.
while.
It has. We've just had stuff going on, really, haven't we? Both of us, just things come up, and we end up having to do other stuff, got other commitments. But here we are. How are you doing?
I think the only word to describe how I'm doing right now is surviving. That's kind of it. I'm surviving. As you know, I'm in quite literally the most difficult period I've ever been through in my entire life. And yeah, surviving it is what I'm doing and how I'm doing. That's yeah.
Good, glad to hear it. Well, that's the most that any of us can hope for, really. At the moment, just keep going. Yeah, it's just strange times, isn't it? It's hard to get a grip on anything and to sort of stay in any kind of, but for me personally, sort of balanced, neutral state. It always seems to be this kind of up and down and all around, and
Mm.
but yeah, so I'm trying to think, like, it's been a few weeks since we did one of these, and I'm trying to think of,
Has.
with my Swiss cheese memory, trying to recall like what's actually been going on um in the last few weeks that's worth kind of mentioning, to be honest. I know you were at the protest for the vax injured. That was when was that? That wasn't the weekend just gone,
Saturday
it was the
before
one.
last.
Yeah, so how was that? That looked pretty emotive, the
It
footage that I
was.
saw.
It was. Yeah, personally, obviously, because of the kind of place I'm in my life right now, I've got all this, my emotions are not far from the surface at most of the time, and I'm sort of struggling. Um, and I didn't do any kind of personal protection, and I went there and I just
Absorb
absorbed
like a
the pain
sponge.
and the sadness and the anger that was sort of there amongst sort of everybody really, which are completely valid feelings, and it's what it's all about. But yeah, there was a lot of times listening to these people. I mean, we all sort of chanted, "We are not misinformation," because that's
Yeah,
what
saw that.
they're being branded as. I mean, listening to the sort of personal stories of injuries, of death, and it wasn't exclusive to vax injured either. It sort of expanded to the midazolam
Yeah.
um, pathways, and sort of the horrendously wrong care that the people were given, and one would argue murdered. It's a
Yeah, no
strong word,
argument,
I know.
no argument from
Um,
us.
but yeah, that, and I think I said it in my live that I think we're all acutely aware that there is so much pain and suffering and harm and death going on in the world. But I think in order to kind of keep moving forward and to be able to come from a place of sort of, rational action and actually be able to keep going, you keep a sort of distance, an
Yeah.
emotional distance from you
Mm,
don't engage with,
mm,
as all the emotions that it brings up in you. And I found on Saturday I just became completely overwhelmed. It
mm.
sort of hits you just how dark the world is, that all of this is happening, and it wasn't an accident. I think was the hardest sort of hit, really. We all were saying in 2020,
Mm.
if this happens, this is going to happen. People are going to die. People are going to be harmed, and it is going to go on for years.
Yeah,
And obviously, we all know.
here we are.
Um, and you sort of think you can't escape the fact that
No.
this was, perhaps not, on the people actually, doing the injections, but on a scale of the people that instigated it. They knew what harm was going to be done, and they did it anyway.
Well,
And yeah, it all.
we're in we're like talking about survival and the need to sort of detach, it's that they're interlinked, aren't they? Like we are in a mass cull. We're in the middle of an extermination program. That's what this is, and it's so huge. Like, to actually, I spoke a lot in the beginning about this weird. It's like we're living in these two places at once. So you've got this mad thing happening, the extermination. This is genocide. This is,
And it
but at the
does
same
sound
time, it
absolutely mad to
does,
say it out loud, doesn't it? Just,
because at the same time we're still living a semblance of normal life. Life is recognizable,
yeah,
and
yeah.
to a lot of people that aren't, on the same wavelength of
Aware.
us as us, they'll be like, oh, okay, the economic situation isn't great, and but that's happened before, and all these things are sort of going on, but it's kind of like, so it's just as normal life, really. We're not under these restrictions anymore. We're not in we don't seem to be right in the midst of this, well, just like insane world stopping, we've kind of come out of that,
Yeah, yeah.
it seems. But to the rest of us, who is acutely aware of what is actually going on and what we're in the middle of here, you've still got that. It is a kind of cognitive dissonance like we have to have in order to get through the day, because when you try and stop and think, I mean, even myself, and obviously, we've been like on this from the start, and we've known about all of these things for many, many years before this actually kind of happened. um it's too much to process.
It is a
It's
lot.
actually too much to kind of like, how do you get a hold on it? How do you actually process? Because it is like something out of a dystopian sci-fi nightmare movie, isn't it? It's just like, and because things are kind of going along and we're living life, it's so at odds with this other reality in a way, isn't it? Of what's going on behind the matrix. I guess it is that mesh that's invisible to most, but it's running the show. I just think we should probably give ourselves more credit for
Yes,
actually
yes.
not completely,
Losing our minds completely.
yeah, because it's just, we know this is happening, and at the same time we're having to keep going and do what needs to be done. And it's just, and I think we have to give ourselves a bit of understanding and compassion.
Yeah.
It's like, look, if you're feeling like I am a lot of the time, like I just can't, like my energy, it's so difficult to get it focused and to just feel centered. And but is it any fucking wonder? Like, come
Yeah.
on, like, for all of us, I need this to say this to myself, as much as, it's just so hard on ourselves. It's like, look at what we're living through. We're witnessing this whole thing, and like you said, we were screaming from the rooftops from day one, being called
All
dangerous
sorts. Yeah.
disinformation agents. We lost family and friends who wanted nothing more to do with us. And then actually seeing it unfold, it's a hell of a lot.
It is a lot, and I think the thing that really gets me with the vaccine stuff is that and I think I said this in my live as well, that obviously there is so much going on in the world right now. There are so many issues to address, that I know there's quite a lot of people that have sort of stepped back from the whole sort of, vaccine campaigns, because of the fact that, when you've got things like the CBDC and the digital ID, the 15-minute cities, all of this stuff that's coming in, that will change our lives and sort of enslave us beyond the point that we are now. And the need to kind of really do something about that. Obviously, we've only got so much energy, and I get it. People have got, sort of their own focus. But I think for me, the idea is that all the kind of other vaccines, which, as I've come to learn over the past few years, they all have a lot more risks than we are made aware of. But when you look at them compared to the mRNA, those risks are much smaller when it comes to the traditional ones we've got. And that's not to understate them, that's not to sort of underestimate, what they can do, but comparatively, the mRNA is a very, very dangerous thing. And the fact that they want to then, over the next few years, go through this process of adapting all of these old traditional vaccines into these mRNA vaccines is a huge concern to me. And if we can't make people aware of how much damage, how much harm, how much death, how much suffering has been caused over the past couple of years by the mRNA, then how much more is going to be caused when the unsuspecting masses who are still sitting there telling us that we're insane, when, we are injecting children with, I mean, I don't even know how many vaccines children are injected with
it's just
these days,
dozens
babies
now.
to sort of 5, there are so many. And it really, really concerns me. And so for me, I mean, that's the biggest reason I went, is that, I really feel like these people, they deserve the recognition. We need accountability, we need justice, but we also need that awareness because of what else is coming down the line. And I think I still think it is a sort of really important topic that is up there with all the other stuff that we're facing.
It's huge, and more and more is coming out. I mean, I'm always obviously very gimlet-eyed about the Daily Mail and anything they put out there, but they do think, I mean, I think it's to stir the pot, but they do put some,
Yeah, they do.
eye-opening stuff out there. And there was an article very recently about the vax injured, and the amount of money that is I don't know if it's actually being awarded. I think they're having to look at, I don't know whether it was either changing. I didn't have time to read the whole thing, but it, just the billions and the sheer number of people that have been injured. So I mean, it's out there before, and the interesting thing is that they actually put that these people aren't anti-vax. So there is that, again, we've got that kind of leaking into the mainstream, and therefore the sort of mainstream consciousness. I do always question, well, what's the motive behind it?
As any good conspiracy theorist would.
Every time I readjust my tinfoil hat, I never trust these. And maybe it is just that, hidden in plain sight kind of thing, where they are actually always telling us. But so, I mean, more and more is getting out there. But yeah, you've got the WHO wants, they've got lined up 500 new vaccines by 2030, and it is called the vaccine agenda. 500 for what? And of course they'll all be mRNA. It's just,
I hadn't seen that. When you started talking about the WHO, I thought you were going into pandemic treaty.
Oh well, that's the whole
Yeah.
They're coming at us from every angle with this. So obviously we've got the pandemic treaty. I mean, I am glad to see that that's being treated with disdain. But and there is quite a bit of fuss being kicked up about it, and I think there are more and more people becoming aware of these, you know, shadowy, you know, these overpowering, impositioning
I think there is too, and
styles.
I do think that is almost squarely down to the millions of ordinary people who are standing in parks, on street corners, in town
Yeah,
centres, at
absolutely.
protests, whatever,
Mm.
screaming from the top of their lungs, you know, about what's going on and making people think. And I think if it wasn't for all of the people that are doing that, that perhaps, you know, there would be a lot less people sort of coming to that conclusion.
Yeah, and it's part of this, the shift into that truth vibration, you know, whatever we want to call it. So you've got people are more receptive, and you've got people who are more compelled to put it out there, because that's the energy that we're
Mm.
moving into, or we're in. um but I mean, there's just this constant, isn't it? There's always stuff to be just absorbed by and overwhelmed by. It's
Yeah,
always that, trying to find that middle path.
there was, of course, I mean, it was mentioned at the rally as well
Mm,
about the public order bill that's just been, has it been given royal assent? Been
I'm
part,
not
I think
sure.
I mean, it's
I
been
think that
passed,
was the late.
whatever the
Yeah.
process is.
Mm,
It's been passed, and it's sort of essentially turns the police into the thought police, and you can be arrested before you've done anything wrong, as long as they just think you might be going to a protest and think you might cause too much noise or disruption or whatever. And of course, noise and disruption are completely subjective um,
yeah, of
things,
course.
and even in the bill themselves, they're not clearly defined.
No, they
Um,
never are. These things
no,
never are.
and that is a worry in terms of, you know, moving forward with these big rallies, because I do think they're important. But I personally have the mind of that. I don't think they are for now.
Mm,
I think they are a lot of these bills and these things that are being passed are for down the line.
yeah,
Because I
when
think
you've got that, yeah, when you've
we
got
will
the
see a
social
lot more
credit.
support, a lot more
Mm,
protests and rallies with a
yeah.
lot more people, ordinary people who have sort of,
Mm.
because the truth's coming. I do believe that, and
Well, that's
you
what it's.
sort of will.
Yeah, and that's why they wanted to just curtail any kind of protest way back, because they knew what was coming. But I think it's just going to cause, you know, greater division between, you know, us and them, the police. I mean, the stories that lately, I mean, we've had the dog,
Don't.
but
I
which
made the mistake of watching the video.
oh my, I
Oh
can't
my God.
even.
I
I get
I felt physically sick.
so
I was physically shaking. That was just the
so
most horrendous thing.
angry. And but these fucking psychos. And then you've got in Australia, I mean, this is the world over, this is what's happened to the people who are supposedly there to protect and serve us, the ones who pay their wages. In Australia, you got a 95-year-old woman being with dementia, being
And a walk of shame.
tasered
It's mental, isn't
in a
it?
care home by a veteran police officer who should be done for. I'm swearing a lot today. I'm just quite sweary, but for fucking manslaughter, she dies, which she could well do. What?
It is just horrendous the way that the police force is going. They're being given far too much power.
They've taken it upon themselves. I mean, I was saying this the other day. These people need, you know, instead of being there to, you know, to serve us, they seem to, it's all been reversed, you know, like everything's inverted, like you don't question them, like they're headmasters or something. They speak down to you like you're this naughty child, you don't answer back. No, no, this needs to stop now. And yeah, I think it could get quite messy. this whole thing with the police, because they are there to serve the obsoletes. That's who they're there to serve. They just enforce their rules. They do not, any decent police, they've filtered them out over years. They deliberately, they profile the people coming in. They want the ones with a, you know, psychotic edge, easily programmed, that
Careful,
will
you're sounding like a
just
conspiracy theorist again.
oh, God forbid. But you know, that's what we see, and the same with the army.
No, I agree. I do agree. It's yeah, it's deeply worrying. It's deeply worrying.
Like, who are
Um,
these people going to be that are enforcing that? It's going to be very, very clear who the enemy is, because any decent human being will not want any part of that. And so many people in the forces have left because they just, the good ones, because they don't want to be any part of that. So the ones that are left, who will be supposedly enforcing these draconian, well, I won't even say laws, because there's nothing lawful about it. It's going to be very clear, you know, that they are not with us or for us. So I guess we just have to see how things play out. But you know, in the end, it still is people power, and if there are the numbers there, I mean, look at Paris.
yeah.
Look at
Yeah,
what can the police? It doesn't matter how many
it's
police
very
you've
true.
got. You
Very
can't
true.
you know.
And it does come down to each and every single one of us raising our voice to injustice when we see it. There was a thing, I think you posted it quite a couple of months ago, about the students sat in a circle or something, and the teacher took a fish out of its
Oh
tank and put
yeah.
it on the table and told them they weren't allowed to move. And
Or
everyone was sort of like, oh,
they'd fail the
they'd
class,
fail the
something, and
class or the
the
grade
teacher
or
left.
whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and it, you know, the moral of the story is, you know, you have to stand up for what you believe is right, and you have to kind of raise your voice and let your actions match your voice, in order for good to prevail. Because if we all just stay silent and let these things happen, they will just keep happening and they will keep getting worse.
Yeah, well, it's self-interest, isn't it? I think that's what the moral of that story was, with the fish, which luckily it's a special kind of fish that can breathe out of water for ages, so it was never in any danger. But
Well,
still,
that's good then.
yeah, yeah, they obviously, the students didn't know that. But yeah, it's right. It's just at some point, and we've been saying this since 2020, like, at some point every single person is going to be confronted. You can keep running away or turning away and not, or let other people, but it will, every single person is going to have to make decisions, and you know, choose to stick their heads above the parapet or not. There will need to be that decision. We can't, I was saying in my live from the park on Sunday, that we can't outsource our hero's journey, you know, looking for that savior all
Yeah.
the time, like a lot of people are just, like I was talking about Elon Musk in particular, just, you know, this whole thing around it, oh, the new champion of free speech and blah, whatever. I'm not even going to get into whether he's this,
No,
that, or the
no,
other. It's not the point. But it's this kind of grasping onto these people, these outside of
yeah.
ourselves the whole time. They'll be the one. No,
Yeah, I think
no,
it's a
they
really important
won't.
point. I think there are a lot of people who attach far too much importance to certain people, that they're some kind of savior, that they're gonna, you know, change everything.
It can't work
Um,
like, I mean, even
it will
just,
never work like that.
no, just rationally, just stop a moment and think about it. How can one, or even a group, you know, whatever, the white hats and all of this, you know, that they're, without the people
Yeah,
behind that, them, whatever, none of it works. So it always lies with us. Of course, individuals can spark things, but they're sparking something within the masses, and that's what changes things. And any one of us can do that. We're doing it all the time without realizing. Just because we don't have billions of pounds and these platforms and everybody is making a difference and a contribution every moment of every day.
Yeah.
But it will come down. It comes down to us.
Yes, I
All of
completely
us.
agree.
We can't. You can't have somebody outside of you granting you freedom. It has to come from in here, and it's got nothing to do with any kind of like even physical freedom. You could have someone who's like trapped in their own body, for example. You know, they could have this condition where if they're free in their mind, or they're way more free than most of the other people walking around, because it's a state of being, and it can't be granted, it can't be given, because in that case it can be taken away, and that's not true. That's not the real deal. If it can be taken away from you, if it can be given and taken away, that's not it. The real freedom that we're seeking, that is always here. It's always here. It's just we can't see it. We don't recognize it. That's that just it's a permanent state. It's infinite. It can't be. It's not dependent on any outer circumstances. So I think it's kind of the next step, like when people start embodying it and realize it. And even they can threaten death, they can threaten all these things. That doesn't take your freedom, being out of your body. It's things, once the fear has gone, because that's all this is that the threat of, and that keeps everybody penned in, and oh god, well, we better. And that gives people that, they want to have an outside hero savior to come and rescue them. It will only ever be us, if that makes sense. I'm quite incoherent. We're saying like we're both bloody tired.
We are.
Just
We
for a
are.
change. God, really rotten night's sleep. Is anyone else out there? Is it just us? Is it?
Do you know what? Most people I speak to do report they feel incredibly tired and drained all the time, but
Just,
maybe there is something in the air. I mean, going into
yeah.
another conspiracy theory is the amount of trails in the sky
Oh my
over the
God.
past few days.
Just,
Well, the last couple of weeks actually, it's been for me much more noticeable
yeah,
than it has been for
undeniable. It's
quite a while.
everywhere. Mm.
So I wonder.
No, I
Uh,
do. I do. I think we are, because I was saying, like, I'm like taking all my like really good supplements. I'm at the gym and being I'm always pretty healthy, but I'm sort of a bit more on it now. And I'm still feeling so tired a lot of the time. And I think it is we're just being
yeah,
bombarded. So
from all
again,
angles.
like, we should be giving ourselves a pat on the back, like considering how attacked we
Come
are.
on, your turn.
What for you? Yeah, like we're somehow managing through the brain fog and the energy levels hitting the floor, and and so much madness that we're just still, I'd like to say sane, but I'm not sure that's wholly
Yeah,
accurate in my case anymore. But yeah, so if I'm like mumbling away and not really making sense, then I'm blaming it on that.
yeah, it's perfectly valid. I think it's the reason I don't do many lives. Is this I get on the camera. It's not too bad when I'm with you, but even so, trying to actually like talk coherently just becomes this like
It's hard. It is
yeah.
difficult.
My brain's just so fried at the minute. Putting thoughts into
Oh,
words becomes
quite a challenge. Yeah.
quite.
Um, was there anything else that we had to sort of touch
We
on?
were going to touch
Anything to do?
on,
Oh,
um,
yes, you had a thing, didn't you?
yes, we were going to touch on something else that is coming at us that we've been going on about that, you know, is labelled a conspiracy theory, but that is carbon credits,
Mm-hmm.
carbon credit system.
Yeah.
That is incoming. That's now on paper, being procured by Essex Climate Action Commission. Yeah, they want to do a carbon counting app which tracks an individual's carbon footprint, suggests ways to reduce their carbon footprint, and rewards actions by awarding carbon credits they take to mitigate the footprint.
That doesn't
And I
sound like social credit score system at
no,
all, does it? No, don't be ridiculous.
I
Nothing to do
think I
with
think
it.
the thing with these things that really, I mean, it goes on to sort of explain that, you know, people will get rewards and retailers and shops and stuff will be encouraged to give them these different
Mm,
rewards and
yeah,
to get people on
exactly.
board. And
They don't mention the punishment side, the
well,
other
you see,
side
this
of
is,
that.
yeah, that's the thing. You know,
Mm.
these things come in. I mean, you look back at the electric cars, for example, when they were brought in, they were told if you buy an electric car, you will save all this money because we're going to reduce these fees and we're going to do this and that, and you'll be rewarded for having this electric
And
car.
it'd be
And then
totally
we got what?
shafted.
Yeah,
Totally shafted. They're now taking away all that. I mean, I shouldn't like.
charging
I just,
points,
but
aren't
I
they?
do. I just like. There's a horrible part of me that
I know.
because there is a horrible part
We've
that's like
we've all got that bit.
like the people that rushed out to get these things, you know, with their blinkers. Oh, nah, yeah, let's queue up and get. And I'm like, see, when they're taking out the free charging because electricity is so expensive, and the tax or whatever it was that you weren't supposed to have to pay. Oh, actually, no, you do. I mean,
I mean, people they it seems big, you know, these things are coming, oh, you can have all these rewards, and people will go, oh, well, that's brilliant, like great. But then once, you know, give it a year, and then there'll be, you know, people don't see the potential for, you know, them to then put restrictions and punishments because of their
and
carbon credit score.
it's all about collecting the data. They
Yes, it
say,
mentions that as
you
well,
know,
at the bottom
which
on the
can
little
and will be
thing.
used against
Get
you.
data on who is doing what and measure the level of success.
Who is doing what? And also the whole premise of it again, total inversion, carbon is life. Carbon,
It is.
the number of times this carbon bullshit has been debunked by extremely knowledgeable, qualified scientists, experts, the real ones.
Yeah.
And yeah, and why? We are carbon. We're carbon based. You are the carbon they want to reduce. I've got that on a t-shirt.
It's great. Is it? Yeah, it's great.
It
It's
is, and that's what
kind of
it. And
sums it up, really, doesn't
this is
it?
what they do. There's always this mockery, this satanic, inverted mockery of the masses in what they do. You can just, oh my God, look, we're gonna tell them we've got to reduce the very thing that they're made of, that we're made of, that creates life. The more carbon there is, the greener the planet. It's deserts rebloom when there's more carbon in the atmosphere. It's just so there's just that other dimension to it that makes it all the more sickening and frustrating. And of course, you got this is all linked to, you've got to have the digital currency, centrally controlled digital currency for all of this. So there was a video I put out. Oh, what's her name? American woman who, oh, do you know, I'm so bad. I'll post the link or something. Who's talking about the reality of having this centrally controlled digital currency where you've got beep, no, sorry, you can't, because they've been monitoring, like with this thing, what you've been doing, where you've been going, and no, you don't get to, and that's linked in with the whole social media, that's all tracked. So if you've said that, if you've done, and it's just those little steps towards
There
it.
does seem to be this cognitive dissonance, and I think, you know, I'm probably guilty of it as well, you know, using platforms like Facebook, but you know they're collating this data, and you know
Yeah,
that actually it's not in your best interests. They're not trying to improve your life. You know, there's
God,
other
no.
things that they're trying to do, and almost nobody would argue with that. They'd be like, yeah, no, they're doing it. But this leap that it could be used in a much more sinister way, you know, that we talk about, you know, this sort of slave system of locking us in and stopping us from doing. No, that'd never happen over here. You said, well, you know, look at China. No, it'd never happen over here. And there just seems to be this real kind of blockade between
It's
sort of
still,
knowing
it's
but
still
being
too
able to
huge.
accept.
Yeah, it's still too huge for most people to be able to wrap their heads around. You know, us sort of old hands at this, you know, we could see it coming a mile off, and it's still not easy to deal with. But for people that have had no idea, it's like they're living in another world. It's just
Mm.
completely, but I mean, you know, like I said, we're all going to be confronted. There will be no getting away from it. So yeah, I mean, I guess the upside is there is a lot of opposition. You know, these things a few years ago would be very, very fringe. Like no one would be really talking about it in any really kind of, I wouldn't say meaningful way, but on a, you know, there would just wouldn't be the audience where there is now. So it's a lot easier to get the information out there. And I think with everything tying in with the way things seem to be going anyway, there's more likelihood that people will kind of prick their ears up. And so it's all good. It's, you know, again, like no matter what happens and how bad things can appear and seem to be, they are not going to win. They're not, because there's something way, way beyond us little people, like little bods trying to manage things and do things. That it's the spirit that animates us will not be crushed. That's what they want to do. It's not actually possible, and they are going to find out, and they'll be the sorry ones. You know, we may lose a lot of people on the way, which is obviously really sad. But again, you know, those are sparks that are never extinguished either. They'll always be there in some form or another, as we all will. So yeah, they absolutely will not win, but it'd be nice to not have to go through all this in order to
It
get
really
there.
would, wouldn't it? Just, but yeah, no, it's a positive note to end on because we are about to run out of time. But it,
We
you know,
are,
and
it's
I
so
do,
quick.
even at the times when it all just feels too much, you know, it kind of feels like this. I've spoken about it before, that it will be right in the end. It might be a bumpy road, but it'll be all right in the end. Human spirit will
Absolutely.
out.
Always, always. And on that note, I send you
So
lots of
yeah, give
love.
yourself a pat on the back. Look after yourself. Be compassionate to yourself.
Yeah.
And
And
hang
we'll
in
speak
there.
to you soon. Lots of love.